All right, I think we're on.
Yeah, there's this fly though that is like gonna bother us this whole freaking show.
Like 3 of them. All right.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to Talking Bearded, Unscripted and Unshaven. Did I get that right in the order?
Unscripted and Unshaven. I keep
wanting to flip it
Yeah.
or like add uncut in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right, before we kick it off, Brenden, you've got ad read.
Yes, this episode is sponsored by Quest Haven Books and Comics, which is where we record our videos. But also, it's an awesome comic book store and bookstore right here in little Iowa.
Yeah, I actually have purchased a couple books from here, and I've finished one, and I'm about to read your recommendation from the last time I was in here.
Nice.
So,
Best way to support it, if you are not from where we are from, is going to bookshop.org and selecting our bookshop as your bookstore. And then we get a cut of the sales.
And can you ship books anywhere in the United States?
Anywhere. It's basically shopping on Amazon, but you're supporting an indie bookstore.
I love that.
So,
website one more time.
Bookshop.org. And then in the top right, there's a little choose your bookstore. And then you find us, Quest Haven Books and Comics. And there it is.
Stop on by.
Yeah.
Well, what's new, man? What's going on?
What is new?
It's been 2 weeks since we've last really seen each other.
Yeah.
And we haven't changed our outfits.
No.
Contrary to popular belief, we just like to wear black because it's
black,
slimming.
Dark like our souls, maybe. I don't know. Or personalities, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. What are we doing? We got through the dance recital.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And then I was just telling you before this, right after we recorded the last time, the next day, horrendous food poisoning.
Oh,
Just like it was like bed to bathroom. That's only where I lived. I was
that's
right there.
terrible.
It was not good. And then it was one of those, like, we went out to eat and I didn't feel anything weird when we ate, but then about like 10, 11 when I was going to bed, I was like, that feels a little funny. And then I woke up middle of the night and I'm like, here we go. This is it. We're living
Floodgates open
and so that was about Wednesday, middle of the day. I was like, okay, I'm feeling good. And then, but yeah, so mostly it's been like clean up after all that stuff, Easter, like, just all that stuff ended.
Yeah.
And now it's been kind of a 2-week, like, wrapping up all that stuff,
Was the dad dance well received?
It was so well received.
I saw the TikTok of all the costumes. Yeah. That was pretty great.
It was a good time. Yeah, the TikTok was hilarious. That one was really fun. We just were like out in the middle of the street and like people were driving by and taking pictures of us. We're gonna end up on the rants and raves site, what are these you guys doing out here? But it was a good time.
Small town Iowa, there's people in costumes dancing in the street.
Well, we were talking about, okay, we're going to do this, And we're like, where should we do it? I'm like, in the road, obviously.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, what about you?
Well, I went through the entire Skywalker Saga of Star Wars movies in the time that we have not been together.
Sure. And how long had it been since you did that?
So I figured out that I've never actually watched the originals from beginning to end.
Whoa.
That was wild.
Yeah.
And so the scenes that were in there, I found myself asking, like, okay, was that in the original or did they add that in? Because I know there had been some changes, right?
And I think if you get on, like, the Disney Plus ones are like the most updated.
They are.
They even changed some other stuff.
Yes.
When they put them on Disney Plus.
Yeah, like I think there's a scene with in New Hope where Han and Jabba have a conversation outside of the Millennium Falcon, and I don't think that
was in 1997. That was from those redos.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell just because the effects get a little bit better, and everyone looks a little bit more cleaned up than the grainy original film.
Yeah.
The prequels, they were fine. The dialogue, the writing was terrible, and those were George Lucas written films, which is the other thing. Like he developed all of these fantastic characters. He couldn't write good dialogue for any of it. And then
he directed. So with the original trilogy, he wrote and directed the first one.
Right.
But then I think the reason that Empire and Return of the Jedi are so much better is because he wrote a lot of it, but he passed a lot of it on to other writers and directors. He just produced it.
And then I don't know, man. It was just not good. And then the prequel arc, I got to give that love. I got to say The Last Jedi. And I was talking to my friend Joe about this. The sequels. I apologize. Yeah, the sequels. My friend Joe, we were having a conversation about it. The Last Jedi, I think, is the perfect modern day Star Wars. It has everything I think you could ever want, and it's
a pretty hot take.
It is.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think I'm wrong, that's fine, but that's my opinion, so get over it. But I found myself just tearing up and almost crying at some points in that movie, just because of not only finishing the character that was, Luke Skywalker, and seeing Princess Leia, because I think that was the last movie Carrie Fisher was in before she died.
She was
right?
supposed to be. Well, she is in the last one.
She is, but CGI, I think.
But she died like in between. Like Last Jedi had come out, and then they were kind of working on pre-production for the next one, and she died.
So I think they used some unseen footage from the first two.
You can tell in Rise of Skywalker, there's a couple scenes where if you really look close on a super high def TV, you can kind of tell like she's been cut out of a scene. And put into
and the dialogue
scene.
Really doesn't fit. It's almost a little choppy.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder what would that movie have been? Because the first one, it was Harrison Ford, Han Solo's kind of end, and then you saw Luke Skywalker's end, and then the last one I know is supposed to be Leia's end, but it never really felt like she got the send off. That she deserved. Granted, they were able to do amazing work with it.
They were able to do something with it, My take with this is my thing with the sequels. The thing that there's a couple things that frustrate me. First off, I will say my official stance on the sequels is that each individual movie on its own is a good, well put together graphics and all that are amazing. It does not work well as a trilogy, I don't think. The story feels uneven and hodgepodge together, and I'll get to why. But the thing that really frustrates me, so I actually really like Force Awakens. What frustrates me about it is that Return of the Jedi, we won. We won. And then you pick up in Force Awakens and like Han and Leia aren't together and Luke is gone. Like it's like we won, but we didn't win.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like what I would have loved to see would have been height of the New Republic's built back big. Luke's Jedi Order is built and big. And then the story is Luke, his Jedi Order versus the Knights of Ren. That's the trilogy story. But I still like that one a lot. Loved Last Jedi when it came out. Loved it in the theater. And then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, I just don't. It frustrates me that Luke gave up after one apprentice going to the dark side. And he only went to the dark side because Luke, like, it just seemed like not a Luke thing, like a thing Luke would do.
Yeah, I get it. I think in the last movie, I mean, how Palpatine is still alive is just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, somehow Palpatine returned. That, like, okay, that's a little.
and then you have the whole Rey being Palpatine's daughter. Like, that to me was just like, really?
Yeah.
That's how you want it. Okay, fine. There's some great action scenes in there. There's some great throwbacks to the old characters coming, back as voices. That was really cool to hear.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I feel like for those first two, so Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Those two, in my mind, like, they were like, great. Those were great. Those movies connected so well, I felt like, because you had the end, and I agree. I think Luke could have been in more.
The
of
last
Force
one's
Awakens.
what messes it up.
Yes.
Yeah, because the whole Rey Palpatine thing, like all of like Palpatine returned, all of that proves to me that they didn't have a plan.
Yep.
Because otherwise, it would just like the prequels. There's a lot of issues with a lot of the writing and stuff, but the story is very complete.
Sure.
Like we know, like it makes sense beginning to end.
Sure.
Everyone go, like the storylines all work, and that like Rise of Skywalker makes me go, I don't know if you guys thought about this.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
But
then outside of that, I've started watching the movie Andor, which sets up Rogue One. I think I'm 3 episodes into it, and it's pretty good so far.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that.
I didn't dislike Andor. I haven't watched season 2. My only thing, we talked about this before, a lot of the Disney Plus shows are very slow.
Yep.
The Andor season 1 just felt like Blade Runner to me. It didn't really feel Star Wars-y.
Okay.
It felt like Blade Runner.
Sure.
I don't know why.
That's all right.
It just did.
Cool.
That's what it was like to me. But I've heard, I was talking to my brother today, actually, and he's really liked season 2.
Okay.
So I'm excited to read.
Yeah, it should be good. I've heard nothing but good things. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of my college buddies, and they've all enjoyed season 2. So I'm excited to see kind of where it evolves.
Apparently, there's a lot of time jumps. Like they do, like
so every 2 episodes is like a year or something, and it jumps to really, I think, the last episode leading directly into the events that take place.
So it's kind of like
Rogue One.
season 2 is like a bunch of mini seasons that like lead up.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. Yeah. Rogue One is an amazing film.
I agree.
I love that movie.
I agree. That might be the best Star Wars movie in my opinion. It's
a
so
top contender
good.
for sure.
So good.
Has all the right bits of nostalgia, but a ton of new stuff. Like it just really works. The whole thing works really well.
Absolutely.
And it explains, it fixes the Star Wars plot hole. You know, of like where it came from and why is there just this random exhaust port that can blow up the whole thing. You know. So
it makes sense.
It works. Here's my last little media tidbit.
Okay. And then I've got a topic I want to dive into.
Suits LA got canceled.
I saw that. My wife has been big into watching that show. She loved that show. She was a big fan of the original Suits, though.
Yeah. See, I never watched the original. So
you have to. The bits and pieces that I saw were actually pretty good.
Yeah. So, but now I'm a few episodes behind, and I've been struggling to watch it. Like, I heard it was canceled, and I'm like,
which stinks because I'm guessing they've already finished filming, and so they probably set it up for a second season.
Season 1 is, I'm sure, done.
Right.
Because I think there's probably only a few episodes left.
I think they said the last episode, if I read correctly, airs March or May 12th. So that would, or May 16th. What's today? The 15th?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it airs tomorrow. Okay. So that makes sense. Yeah. That's the last episode.
So it'll probably have a bit of a cliffhanger.
Unless they shop it around, because I know a lot of original characters came back, is what Nicole was saying.
Yeah, there's a few. And, we've been seeing in the last few years, there's been a lot of, like, some other network will pick up a show. Like,
or maybe Netflix or Amazon Prime. Or I know with Lucifer, we started watching Lucifer, and when Netflix picked that up, we got really excited for that. So that was a good show.
Yeah. Brooklyn Nine-Nine did that. They did that. Someone else, and then, like, Fox picked it up for the end or something. So it does happen.
Scrubs. It happened with Scrubs.
Yeah. What do you think? There's a Scrubs reboot coming in there.
I'm interested to see it. Scrubs is my favorite TV show, sitcom TV show. Yeah? Loved it.
You and my younger brothers especially. Well, my older brother too. He likes it. Yeah. You can have some good talk.
Huge Scrubs fan. Couldn't make it today though, in the way that it was formatted back then.
I've only watched it one time.
Yep.
And I really liked it. I didn't latch onto it as much as my brothers did, but they love it.
No, it was great. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. For sure.
Cool.
So should we get into the meat of this episode?
Yeah. So I presented this topic to you when I walked into the comic shop this evening. In the first episode, we kind of talked about, or not kind of, we did, briefly touched on how as we grew up, we got to see the birth of all of this technology with being online really full time. AOL, instant messenger, cell phones evolve into smartphones, evolve into, tablets, and then you have TV and movies and VHS, and all of that stuff has evolved over time, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that, but then I want to move that into AI and how AI is shaping the future.
Sure.
So I think we can probably start with the technology when we grew up, right?
Yeah. Well, I think so. What I mentioned, we talked about this in that first episode of, I believe our generation was like at this perfect time where we know what it's like to not have the technology, but we grew up with the technology. So we know how to live without it, but we're also not afraid of it.
Yes.
So, and we learned how to learn fast with it because it was changing fast when we were growing up.
Rapidly.
Like all of a sudden it was like we had internet in the house. Like, so before that it was like I could play a few games on the computer.
Sure.
Then it was, we got internet and now I got AOL, then I got MySpace, then I got iTunes comes out and, all of a sudden it just was this crazy expansion.
Right.
And we grew up with that, but we also we didn't know what the consequences of that would be either.
Did you ever pirate movies and albums off the internet?
No, not ever.
So I remember distinctly there were a few sites everyone knows what, LimeWire and Napster and all that stuff. When I was in high school, a friend of mine turned me onto this other, I can't remember the name of it, but he's like, yeah, they have everything, but I would recommend only downloading like 1 or 2 albums a week. Otherwise they're going to get you. And I decided to push a limit, and I'll never forget my dad got an envelope from Mediacom that said, hey, you're pirating music. Stop, or you're going to have to pay what was like $1.5 million. My dad's like, cut it out.
That's enough.
Or you're going to leave the house.
And then we all discovered VPNs and...
See, I didn't. I would say it took me until... this is going to make me sound terrible. I don't think I figured out or knew what a VPN was until probably 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone pirated stuff, especially in those early days. I remember using LimeWire, and computer would get viruses. My dad get all pissed at me, and we'd have to fix the computer and all that. But I do distinctly remember, like, there was a certain point where I was able to pirate stuff, but then I remember, like, all of a sudden I kind of had adult money. Not like a ton of money, but just like a normal amount of, like, I have a big boy job.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I don't have to deal with, like, crappy versions of movies.
Well,
I can just go buy the movie.
And then let's talk about, CDs. You want to talk about things that have changed. I had stacks and stacks of CDs, and then this little device came out called an iPod that I could store 500 songs on this iPod and carry it with me everywhere. Sign me up.
So I never had an iPad.
Okay.
Ever. I got my first iPhone, like iPhone 4, I think is the first one. My wife and I, like, we're like, we're going to go get an iPhone. But I am always an early adopter, always have been. And when we got a Mac and like iTunes and all that stuff came out, my wife had a big binder of CDs. I had a big binder of CDs. And then Apple came out with their iTunes Match program, which was like, you could upload songs you already had, and then it would keep it in sync with your iCloud and stuff.
Interesting.
So I very quickly, early on, digitized all of our music, and we got rid of it all.
So I was the kid that plugged all his CDs into his laptop, uploaded them to iTunes, and then the amount of, I didn't use iCloud, so the amount of memory I stored on my computer was
substantial.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
I used to go to where I was going to college. In the library, they had like 2 smaller bookcases of CDs. And I would just go sit in the library and just rip them onto my computer.
I would do that at the Urbandale Library, and then where I went to Iowa State. In Iowa State, you had to know what CD you were looking for.
Right.
Like, they wouldn't let you go back and just browse the CDs. You had to go downstairs to the media desk. You had to know the number of the CD you were looking for, and they would get it for you.
Yeah, I was at a community college, so it was a little different. It was a lot smaller, and I literally would just go sit at a table right next to the CD thing.
That's awesome.
And I just sit there. And I went to school for music, so I was looking for like a lot of older jazz albums, and like I was looking for some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just ripped so much music.
I was just trying to get as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I maybe listened to, in total, 700 songs more than 5 times. It was really funny. I had a friend in high school once tell me, he looked at my iPod. He's like, there's no way you listen to all this. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. He said, here's what I challenge you to do. I want you to go into your iTunes and click on the number of plays. And anything that doesn't have a number played by it, get rid of it.
Yeah.
I freed up so much space on my computer. It was insane.
Dude, those early days of just all sorts of media. Like, I was just thinking, when I first got, actually, I recant my statement about the iPhone. I did have an iPod Touch for like a year.
Yeah.
But like, even like the early days of the App Store.
Yeah.
I remember just like, I want to go download as many apps as possible because I just want to see, like, it was so fresh.
It was.
It was crazy.
And I think that's what the biggest thing was, is we had all this new stuff. So going back really to what we grew up with. So I grew up, you're what, a year older than me?
2? I'll be 36 this year.
I'll be 35 in January. So about a year
and a half.
We'll call it a year and a half. But I can remember, I remember specifically my parents had the car, like the big bulky car. I wouldn't say it was a car phone, but the cell phone they had was almost like, it was.
It's like a chunk.
Yeah.
It had the antenna.
Yeah. My mom's, from her old Honda Accord, it was an antenna that pulled. It was already just a long black antenna, but she had it. And then I remember them just drastically getting smaller. My first cell phone was like a Nokia phone that had Snake on it. Yeah. And it was only really used. I think I was one of the first ones to get it in all my friend group. I didn't want for anything. We were very well. We could afford whatever, a lot of things. But I was involved in a lot of stuff. So my parents said, okay, you need this cell phone just in case something happens. We don't want to lose contact with you. Okay, that's fine. But then just seeing how then we wanted smaller phones. So then you got I remember the chocolate was a big thing, and then you had the Razor. The chocolate was the one that slid up, so it slid down and it was like a small touchscreen, but then it slid up. But then
the Razor was big.
The Razor was big.
I remember that. I was freaking out about the Razor.
What was the one with the keyboard? Do you remember the one that
Sidekick?
Sidekick. There was a Sidekick.
I had a buddy who had a Sidekick,
and then there was the one that was long, but it just kind of flipped open. I dated a gal that had that, and I thought it was the coolest phone ever. Yeah. I don't think I ever got one though. Maybe I did. Anyway, but then going to the iPhone, and everyone wanted a smaller phone. But now we're at the point where it's like, no, it's got to be the big phone, and you've got the Pro Max, and it's got to be the big screen. And now you have the fold phones that are basically like small tablets. I'm like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I miss the iPhones with the round edges. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like the iPhone 10, 11, 12, where it was the rounder edge.
Everything was all rounded. Because when they did the iPhone 4, it was like the flat.
Which is where they brought back to this.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of. I will say I coming back to it, it was like nostalgic because it was like, oh yeah, the 4 had that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the way it was after the 4.
I like this or the squared one, but because I do a lot of video with my phone.
Sure.
So then it's easier to hold. I remember my dad bringing home. At one point, he worked in insurance for a while, and he had I'll probably get this wrong. He had like a Palm Pilot or something.
Yeah.
a BlackBerry or like I remember him bringing something home and had like a stylus and it was
That
like,
was the Palm Pilot. I had
so
one too.
cool. It was so awesome.
I had I think it's a second or third cousin that had one.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the coolest thing. Granted, I was like 12, 13 maybe. And then they got me one for like my birthday or Christmas. And it wasn't like the kind that he had. It was more one that was a little bit dialed back. I didn't really use it for much.
The first cell phone that I had, me and my brother, my older brother, I want to say he was a senior and I was a sophomore, and we shared a phone. We got an LG thing. It was just a little rectangle. And we had to share a phone because we had a lot of school activities and my brother could drive. And then I didn't get my own cell phone until I think I must have got it junior year when he left. And then I got a phone for my junior year. So that was my first.
That's very different than what I did. Granted, only child. So I never had to share anything. Well, it was great.
But it's so my daughter has a phone and she's going to be 11 this year. So she's pretty young.
Yeah.
It's completely locked down. Like she can only download apps.
You had mentioned that, yeah.
So she can only download apps that I let her. She can't add anyone to her contacts. If someone isn't in her contacts, she can't even read their messages or can't get calls or none of that. But the difference, so we got her that because she's an only child, but like we're very busy with our stuff. She's got a lot of activities. I was like, I just want to be able to get a hold of you. But we did grow up in a time where like my parents mostly knew where I was. But like if I was out by myself as a kid, like running around with friends or something, my parents didn't know where I was. I didn't call them and tell them all the time, like, because you couldn't, you didn't have a way. So there was always a lot of like, I'm going to this friend's house. And my mom would say, you're not allowed to leave. Or if you do leave, you need to call me from their house phone. Like, but there wasn't this, I'd go out and ride my bike and like, I'm just out.
It's one of those things we're looking at it now, especially being a parent. Why were we allowed to do that?
Right. But it's because now I'm like, why wouldn't let Sophia do that?
Did our parents have the illusion that it was safer then than it is now?
I don't know. I think it was just part of the times. I think because you couldn't. Like you just
had to accept the fact.
You just had to accept it. Like
they're going out to play.
If I told my parents I'm going to the pool, and I went to the pool, they had no way to verify that.
Right.
And I could have went anywhere I wanted. Someone would have seen. We live in a small town, so someone would have seen me. But like, there's like, so the thing I've been looking into a lot recently is how that changes our kids because like, if I was riding my bike, say I left my house, I was going to ride up and get a donut at the bakery or something. If I ran into trouble, I had to solve it.
Right.
I couldn't call anyone. I couldn't call my dad. No one could save me. Whereas if my daughter does the same thing, she can call me right away.
Right.
It's just a different mindset shift.
Growing up, that's the thing, like growing up and having to learn all of this stuff, all of this new technology that we had with phones, with VCRs, going to DVD players, going to Blu-ray players. And then I can remember getting my parents set up with streaming. And one of those things where I think it was my mom asked me, she said, how are you so good at how do you know all this stuff? And my answer, and I don't know if you can relate to this, was, well, growing up, we had to figure it out. So we just pushed buttons and played around with it until we knew what to do.
It's kind of like, you remember early on game systems, when you got a game, there was no game guide. You couldn't look it up.
Right.
You couldn't get on the internet and look.
Right.
Like if I wanted to learn how to play Pokemon Blue, I just played it.
Right.
And that same thing.
Yeah.
Like you just hit the buttons.
Right.
Until you figured it out.
Hopefully it doesn't break.
Right.
Hopefully I don't change the settings in my parents' DVD player so it changes to Spanish or French or Chinese, where I don't know what it says. And then what do I do to change it back? I don't know.
It happens a lot at work, actually, with, we have a lot of volunteers where I work. And it happens so many times where like the volunteer like doesn't know what, like, I don't know what button to hit or whatever. And I just walk up and I'm like, I don't know, let's see what happens. Like, you just have to be not afraid.
Oh yeah.
To just like
that, but they, and that's the thing. It's kind of where I think our parents and maybe the older generation were scared of it. Mm-hmm. Maybe not scared of it, but didn't want to learn it because they didn't want things to change.
Yeah.
So that then takes me into the AI conversation, as AI, I would say, has come about really the last few years and has really expanded into this year. I don't want to say that I'm afraid to learn it, but I'm almost hesitant about it. Mm-hmm. Mainly because it doesn't affect what I'm doing now.
Right.
But when I think about it, I know it's going to literally be everywhere.
And it already is.
So why not try and take advantage of it?
Yeah.
So when I'm cutting clips, like for this podcast, when I'm cutting clips for episodes, I throw it into an AI generator and say, hey, make 10 clips ranging from 30 seconds to 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, it gives me those clips, but it still gives me the opportunity to edit them,
change them
as I see fit.
Right.
But understanding that I have these tools that I can use to my advantage to make my life easier.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely at it. So this is kind of where I struggle with myself a little of like, I've always been an early adopter. Right. So like when I was 9 and we got a computer and you could boot up and DOS a game, I loved it. I mean, you could like type in stuff. Like I've always been like, you give me a computer, I want to take it apart. You tell me about AI and I'm like, yep, let's learn everything that I just want to jump in. Like all of my devices, I'm on like beta releases. Like I'm always early adopting.
See, that stresses me out, man.
See, and that's where I'm I'm a little skewed because of that.
Yeah.
Because when AI happens, so I tell my brother this all the time, my youngest brother, we talk about it sometimes, and I'm like, AI is going to be amazing until it destroys the world. Like that's basically where I'm at. And for me, part of it is if you don't learn about it, then it becomes scary.
How do you think it's going to hurt? How do you think it's going to end up hurting us as a society?
Well,
have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. There's going to be a lot of unintended consequences.
Sure.
Similar to like social media, like we're learning about that now.
Absolutely, like there was with the technology we grew up with is a perfect example.
And like social media, when it started, seemed so harmless.
Yep.
Like I don't remember my parents ever like having any reservations about me getting a Facebook because you couldn't do anything on it.
Right.
But now we are 20 years in and we're like, oh, there are some issues with social media. There's a lot of unintended things that we're learning about now. So with AI, for me, obviously it's going to disrupt a lot of careers, like data management, writing, copywriting. Yeah. Like there's going to be so many jobs that just disappear.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality. Like that's just the reality of it. The question will become, the question is always, and you hear this from all the people who make AI, you hear this from anyone discussing AI. The main question is, how is it being programmed? And who is programming the AI's values? Because at the current moment, it doesn't generate anything on its own. So who's programming the morals of the AI? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we can end up like Star Trek, which is the utopia version, where AI fixes most of humanity's ailments and makes everything super easy, and we can just create and do art and, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Or you got Terminator, like that's the, so yeah, we're going to end up somewhere in the middle. of those two things.
Sure.
But the question is who programs the morals of the AI?
What is your favorite feature of AI that you have found as you're learning it?
So one of my favorite things I've been messing around with is coding.
Okay.
Because it has all of the knowledge of coding languages. So you can, so like I've been working on, I think there's a term now for it because I don't know coding. Right. I know a little bit, like I've messed with it.
Yeah.
I think it's called vibe coding is what it is, where you like describe it to an AI and it writes the code for you.
Sure.
But that's been pretty interesting. I've built a few apps that are just like on my phone that I'm kind of messing with and like building tools for myself of like, I
awesome.
wish I could fix this thing.
Yeah.
For me. And so I built a thing for it. But writing. So I've done a couple of experiments. Copywriting.
Okay.
Pretty no big deal. Like if I built a website for my wife's dance studio.
Sure.
I half AI'd that. Like I used a lot of great example. If you're doing any sort of like privacy policies, social media policy, like all that kind of stuff, like assumption of risk, like all those like legally things.
Yeah.
There's no creativity required with that.
Sure.
It's a standard thing. You're just saying that we're not liable for blah, blah, blah. If this happens, that's a great use of AI. Like things that don't require creativity.
Yeah.
What it's not good at, when I've tried this, is because it only has the knowledge that we've given it. So it can't do creative writing well yet,
Sure.
in my experience. So I did a thing once where I wrote the first couple pages of a story, just like a random, gave it to the AI and just had it keep trying to continue writing it. And the first few things I had it do, it continued. I'm like, okay, like it's continuing the story. And then it eventually just started repeating the same thing over and over again in a different way. Like it would just say the same thing, but just with different words.
Okay.
So, nobody has to worry about it taking over the world just yet.
No, not yet. Yeah. But I think I was reading an article just because the new iPhones are getting ready to be released here in I think September. Mm-hmm. And
they'll announce them here in June.
Or they'll announce them in June and they'll be released in September. And I read somewhere where someone who is a higher up in Apple says, oh yeah, the iPhone will become obsolete in the next 10 years because AI will just do it.
Yeah.
And I can't see that.
Right.
I can't picture that. And that kind of got me excited about it because it's in the same way where, you're watching Back to the Future or Dick Tracy and he's got the watch that's a phone and then you've got the iWatch and it's like all of these cool things are coming out and you can't see it.
And you're watching Star Trek and you think their risk communicator's amazing and now we have it.
Yeah. So it's almost, we still don't have flying cars though. That kind of makes me upset.
We do have a few hovering cars that
are
prototypey things.
Or the hoverboard from Back to the Future. I always wanted one of those, man. I could never skateboard, but I always wanted one. But it almost gave me that excitement of this shiny new thing that I can't wait to get my hands on and see how it evolves.
Yeah.
I would say probably the most I've used AI has been for my emails at work. So... what really helps is if I'm in a meeting and I'm recording it and I'm taking notes, I can take the transcript of that recording, upload it to, we'll say, Copilot with Microsoft. And I'll say, hey, can you create a follow-up email with this transcript? And it'll spit something out. And then I'll take my notes that I've written out or typed out and copy them in and say, can you add these notes into this into the wrap up? And it'll do it. Yeah. And then obviously I can go in and make changes where I see fit. For instance, they probably don't need all the chatter in between everything to talk about, what the weather's like, etc. But
one of my favorite uses, so one of my many hobbies that I've not really brought to fruition yet is I like to write stories. And I've got a few books in the works that I'm working on. But because I have a commute of about 45 minutes one way, so I get about an hour and a half in the car every day. That's when I have all my best ideas.
Sure.
But I'm driving and I can't just jot it down or, So one of the things that I've done a lot of, which is I like a lot, there's an app called Whisper that can do, I think it can do up to like, they might have changed it. Last time I used it was like, we're up to like 20 minutes of recording. I just turn that on and I just start spouting my ideas for my stories, just saying it all, like whatever comes to me, all this kind of stuff. And then when you're done recording, the app will email you the transcript.
Oh, cool.
And then I just take that transcript, pop it through an AI, and have it organize the ideas for me.
Okay.
So that's just idea capture,
When I first started playing around with AI, it was when it was like, oh yeah, AI can write songs for you and write song lyrics. And I've always wanted to be able to write my own songs. I'm horrible at writing. Now I have that to be said, I haven't tried that hard to really write any songs, right? But I popped it into AI and said, hey, write me a song with this theme in it in the style of these two artists or this genre or whatever. And it spits out lyrics. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. And then you hear about, all of these professors that are having to deal with and teachers that are dealing with their students writing papers and just using AI.
So that's the problem. The problem with AI right now is that it's generative in that it only has the information we've given it. So like the songs that it pops out are not original creations.
Right.
And so the question is when does AI actually start creating on its own?
But is that when you get into the danger zone of then AI taking over the world?
Well, so that's where like Age of Ultron's a great example.
Right.
Ultron was fine when he was contained. And then Ultron gets out, has access to everything and the ability to think on his own, and he determines that humans were the problem all along.
Which James Spader, great Ultron.
Great. So great.
Great actor altogether.
So great. The best use of AI to me in robotics and where all this technology is going is the best case scenario is that it lifts humanity out of having to do mundane tasks. So like, I don't have to budget my money anymore. The AI knows how much I make. It knows what I want to do. It just does it for you.
Sure.
I don't like driving. The cars are all automated and none of us have to drive anymore. You just get in the vehicle and it takes you to work.
Right.
Then that freaks some people out.
A little bit.
But
and I can understand why it would.
But it's those mundane tasks. Like I spend an hour and a half in the car driving.
Yeah.
What else could I do? I could be creating. I could be making art. I could be writing. I could be doing something else than just driving.
Right.
Dishes. Like, so Tesla's making those Optimus robots.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think they said they're going to sell them for like 20 or 30,000 somewhere there, which everyone was like, that's a lot of money. I'm like, is it though?
Right. If you think about it.
If you had an Optimus robot in your house and it could do your dishes, vacuuming,
clean your whole
do
house,
your laundry, like it could walk your dogs, like all those kinds of things. The amount of just times, if you put like, say I'm worth $15 an hour, $20 an hour, like it pays for itself. You know what I mean? Okay. So those.
But then you get into an iRobot scenario.
Sure. Again, I'm not saying there's not pitfalls.
Dude, I always am, especially with AI for whatever reason, and I think I compare myself to my parents growing up being, with being against technology and against the advancement of it. I get it, man. I can understand how looking at the negative of everything that And maybe that's just my problem. Maybe I need to stop thinking about the negative of everything and realize how helpful it could be to us as a society.
That's what I try to be a AI optimist.
Sure.
Like, I realize the pitfalls. There's going to be pitfalls everywhere. So here's a question for you as it relates to our kids. So Sophia will be 11. And so she's kind of growing up how I did with internet. I didn't have internet, and then I did have internet. She has all this other technology, but she didn't have AI, and now she does have AI. Your kids will always have AI.
Yeah.
Like, they won't know. They'll, by the time, because they're 4
and 2.
Yeah. So by the time your oldest is to where Sophia is, think of how far AI will have moved then. So he won't even know.
Right. He won't know a time when AI didn't exist.
Yeah. So then where does that take things like writing papers for school, or, you know what I mean?
I think it becomes non-existent. I think homework is going to become obsolete in the sense that you have to do these math problems. You have to do, maybe I would even say writing or work. I think writing papers will always be around. But I think the mundane homework task of taking stuff home to work on will go out the window. Yeah. And I think we're already seeing it.
Well, it's kind of like, you remember when you were in math class in high school and your teacher or someone would always be like, well, you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket.
No, you do now.
And I'm like, not only do I have a calculator in my pocket, but I can actually just ask it to solve the problem, and I don't even have to know how to solve it. You know what I mean? So I always laugh at that, but I'm like, you don't have to do.
No.
Great example. When we start at the bookstore and we're doing a soda shop. Soda shop gets very like, how much does each cup cost you? How much does each lid and straw? And you get a bottle of flavoring that's 750 milliliters. Well, how much does each milliliter cost? Because you're only putting in 3 milliliters a thing or whatever. I had AI help me figure out all that math.
Plug that into AI and it does it for you.
I was like, this is what we're doing. This is how much stuff we have. This is how much I can get the cups for.
That's crazy.
I've got these syrups. I've got these flavors. They cost this much. I'm using 4 pumps per drink. And it just figured out so I figured out my cost.
Wow.
I did all of that in like 30 minutes.
That's crazy.
And that's the kind of mundane stuff of like lifting us out of having to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to get wild, man.
I can't wait.
So like,
I have to embrace it, and I think I'm going to start.
Yeah.
Cool.
Otherwise, we get left in the dust. Yeah. Which we're already kind of left in the
a
dust.
little bit, yeah. A little bit.
So the thing for me that's kind of a line, though, is creating with it.
I think that's a fine line. I worry about... Because like you said, it's not creating anything original.
Right.
So are you ever going to have, are we going to lose all originality in life if we lean on AI to that certain point?
Because I think we already struggle with that without AI.
Agreed.
In that, like...
When's the last time you've seen, original movies don't outweigh remakes or... like comic book movies or Star Wars movies or Star Wars shows, something like that that's already been done.
Yeah. I read an interesting article that talked about how the future of movies, like for Netflix, instead of it being like humans making all that stuff, it's you like sell prompts. So like if you want to watch this movie, or a movie like this, it's just like you plug a prompt into Netflix and then it creates a movie for you on the fly.
Did we ever talk about the Dudesy podcast? Did we bring that up? So Will Sasso, who is a great Canadian comedian, he's an actor, was in Mad TV, did the Three Stooges reboot. He's in a show on TV, on cable television right now. I think it's the big recent Big Bang Theory spinoff. And then a buddy of his, Chad Kultgen, who's a writer. I can't remember what else he does. But they had this podcast called Dudesy. And the whole premise was AI gave them the prompts to talk about. So you had Chad, you had Will, and then you had Dudesy as the host. And they got into some. So the whole idea was the reward. They would get a reward system at the end of each episode, and then it got to a point where once you hit, I think it was like 1,000 or 10,000 points, the Dudesy would evolve and whatever. It was a bit. It ended up being a bit. I think at the end of the day, everything was written by Chad. He just put it in AI to help move it along.
Sure.
They got into some trouble because they did like a George Carlin recent a new stand-up of George Carlin.
Yeah.
And his family ended up suing him because they said, well, it was the first AI.
Yeah.
And then to find out, well, wasn't AI. It was written by, they took, a bunch of his old material, threw it in AI. Chad updated a few things, and then they put it together. So, but it was just something to see, like, wow, how AI could integrate into society in the podcast era, or in the podcast realm, I guess.
Well, we're also seeing like before James Earl Jones died, he signed like the rights for his voice to be used with AI.
Yeah.
So like for Star Wars, they could keep making Darth Vader.
Yep.
Which like, so that's the fine line. Like I personally, I'm okay with that. If he was okay with that, and it's for an iconic character that like is or so like tied to that sound.
His voice from Mufasa from The Lion King, being able to use that.
Right. And then if it still goes back and it benefits his family, like, like all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But that's that line of what is okay and what is not okay with AI.
And then is it he only agreed to do it if it was properly licensed, or in the case of like Scarlett Johansson, who said was it Chat GPT, no, you can't use my voice, but they ended up using it anyway.
Yeah, what was that about?
I can't remember.
I remember seeing something about that. I don't remember what it was about,
but where's does that line? I mean, you have to have people that are understanding that you can't steal someone's likeness just because they say, I don't want my voice to be.
Well, and then that's the stuff that gets scary.
Right.
I'm actually not as concerned about the AI going off the rails, although maybe I should. I'm more concerned about how humans use it.
Yeah.
Because it will get to a point where it's like, is this video of the president real or not? I mean, we're already kind of on the precipice of that anyways.
Yeah.
Right now, you can still tell when it's AI video.
Right.
But it's getting better all the time.
Better.
So then it's like, can you trust anything you see at all?
It's scary.
That's what's scary.
Yeah.
Because you already have that with social media. Like if you see, like, you don't ever post on social media the crappy parts of your life.
No.
You don't. You post, I went on vacation. I did this. I had this fun time.
And then you get
friends.
And then you get that jealousy factor and then, I wish my life could be like Brendan's because he's doing all this cool stuff.
So take that plus AI.
Right.
That's where it gets really scary.
Jeez.
So
yeah, I think the deciding factor is going to be how us as humans evolve it.
Yeah.
Not how it evolves, but what do we do with it?
Right.
That's a scary thing to think about.
So then the real tough question, how do we actually prepare our kids for it? Like, I don't even know.
I don't know. That's
no
a great
idea.
Question.
That's why I want to learn about it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I'm involved in learning about it, I'll have a better chance of helping her navigate what it is and what it will do and all that. But I don't know it's going to be weird.
It'll be weird. I think it's something we just have to embrace.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
this was fun. I enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah.
Completely different from the usual media that we talk about, but it was nice to have something different.
The AI thing I've been really getting into, so I've been...
Well, let's keep that conversation open, and we can talk about it more as it continues to evolve.
It will keep evolving.
Guys, thanks for joining us. Remember to go to YouTube. You can watch us there. Like and subscribe, comment, do all that nonsense. Follow us on the TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple.
I think we're officially on like anywhere you can get a podcast.
Yep.
All the small apps, all the big apps, everywhere you go.
And I think you're working on a website, right?
Yep. We're working on a website, so we'll have them loaded up there.
Yeah.
More ways to connect. Maybe even someday we'll start a Facebook. I don't know.
I should probably get on that. Huh?
Probably should.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
See ya.